shout at you.
Yes.
For yours.
So, are we good? Okay.
I even wore a tie.
Actually, so let's reboot that.
I even
because
wore a
I
tie,
think,
and
okay,
I'm
so
just
I
on
think
mute.
we
There you go.
just yes. So for
Is
all
this
of
how you get fired for a podcast? By the way, they're like, I don't know, your seat's just not here anymore, and your mic doesn't work. It's weird. I don't know what happened.
That was our. So Austin goes, it's his first and last day. So that was actually, I set up everything but that. So for all of the lip readers that caught the first 5 minutes.
Perfect. That was great.
You guys know what's going on.
Yeah,
But now
absolutely.
we'll fill in everybody else.
Yeah.
So we were actually talking about throttle up.
Correct.
I was going to say level up, but that's somebody else. That's
yeah,
copyright
that's a
infringement.
whole nother thing.
That's
Yeah.
brand infringement. So we got Justin kicking it off.
Yep.
State of the Union, what's going on, Zillow, et cetera, et cetera. And then we got Ashley and Michelle, podcast like a girl. They're going to actually pull the curtain back and give the insights on what does it take to do a podcast every week for a year.
I mean, discipline.
Yes. And then we got Wayne here that is going to essentially delve into the idea of intention, reflection, and pulling the trigger. Because everybody wants to. That's usually how it goes, where they really want.
There's There's a lot of people that are interested. The very people like do a little more. Like most people never take the action, and then if they take the action, it's the consistency of it. So yeah, so we'll talk about like how do I actually like override my brain and get into action? Like how do I actually get over this thing and control this thing? Because like I named my brain a couple weeks ago. Did I tell you this? Yeah, I was like I heard somebody talking about it, I'm like I'm just gonna do it. So I have this whole coaching process, like your critic to a coach and all this other stuff. But I named my brain Bob. And like Bob can be a jerk, right?
Yes.
Sometimes I'm just like, hey, Bob, like, thanks for bringing that up. Got it. Like, I'm good for now. You know what I mean? Like, don't need you right now. Bob is not making decisions today.
So now, have you read The Untethered Soul?
Yes.
Okay. So, so there's that thing where I think that's hopefully I'm not.
Yeah, 100%. This is Wayne's version of Untethered. Untethered Soul
no, there's
is
the
like
thing where like you're watching things on the screen and then you have like the passenger or whatever, and then of course on Dexter they got that really twisted.
Yeah, there you
go. But in the non-Dexter version, it is what you said. You have that sort of secondary personality that's like throwing his opinion out there or butting in.
Yes,
and so a lot of that for most people, I think, because certainly for me was the inner critic.
Yes. Well, and most people don't realize that, like, in their mind, like they're the preface of the book in a sense is like you're the observer of those thoughts. You are not your thoughts. So we identify with our thoughts for most of our life. We're like, I'm sad, I'm depressed, I'm anxious. And what the cool thing about that book and several others kind of represent is like, imagine you're driving down the road and there's a passenger in the car, right? And that passenger is stress or anger or Bob or whatever you want to call it. And the key is like that passenger's kind of with you, right? It's they're like, hey, watch out for that sign. Hey, avoid this, right? It's kind of a little bit of backseat driver.
It could come in handy.
Yes. The problem is most times we get stressed or anxious or whatever it is, and we let like Bob drive.
Yes.
And Bob like crashes into stuff. He's hitting people. He creates havoc. And then like once he feels better, he's like, all right, cool. It's back to you. And you're like, bro, you hit 20 like what is going on?
Yes.
So it's like, I'm experiencing anxiety. I can experience stress. I can experience whatever it is, but like, that's not who I am.
Yes.
I'm the observer of that. That's not who I am. So how can I learn to like talk to Bob and tell Bob, like, thanks for bringing it up.
Got you down.
I get last time I sucked at this, but like, go sit in the corner for a second. Let me get after it.
And, we talk about that too in recovery, where it's like the committee in your head.
Yes.
And I always liken it. So to the guys I sponsor, I would say like, oh yeah, for the longest time, like my evil twin or whatever that was at the wheel, that guy liked to drink. So like that guy was making bad decisions 24/7. And that guy never went away.
Right.
But after a while, he's in the passenger seat.
Correct.
Well, then he's in the back seat.
Yep.
Now he's shifted and now he's in the trunk, but he's in there.
Absolutely.
And, one of the things to be diligent, and sort of on point for going forward in recovery and sort of ongoing as a maintenance thing is to just don't let that guy at the wheel.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And on the committee, everybody gets an opinion, but not everybody gets a vote.
Right. Well, and like my future self has an opinion on the committee, right? Like it's like, hey, what would Wayne a year from now want us to do? Right? Like what like there's all these different seats. Like I said, just don't let Bob drive.
Yes, which Every time anybody ever says anything about future self, I think about the Homer Simpson gimmick where they say something. He goes, "Oh, that's a problem for future Homer."
Absolutely. Future me is amazing.
He's like, I wouldn't want to be that guy.
Yes.
And I think he chugs either like just saturated fat or like eats a stick of butter or just something ridiculous.
Yeah, that guy's good. Yeah. No, I love future me really shined. Like, well, like we talked about, like most people introduce themselves to future self in college where it's like, I got a paper due in like 6 hours. I'm going to let future self handle it. It's like 2 hours before I'm going to really freak out.
Yes.
And let future self show up. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when it comes to this content, right, most people don't have a clear intention or a clear path to kind of do it. They know they need to be doing it, but they're just not doing it. So I think it's going to be cool. We're going to lay out some of the different options, some of the different ways to get it done, and what you should really expect from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, the equivalent of calisthenics maybe, or like the reps.
Right.
Where most folks, again, want to do it and know that they should. And probably on some level realize like, okay, if you're a seasoned agent
Right.
or seasoned professional or whatever, there's somebody that's 23 that doesn't really know their ass from third base as far as
Right.
your industry goes.
It's about to kick your tail.
Yeah, that's about to just blaze past you.
Yep.
And then you'll
Yep.
be stuck again saying like, I should have done,
Yeah,
I wanted
absolutely.
to,
Yes.
but I didn't. And there goes, more negative inner monologue, oh, that never goes out of style.
Yeah.
And if we can get folks past that, that will lead directly into Corey at Random actually giving the action steps. Like, okay, here's a few things to do right now. And then we're going to parlay that into the unveiling of the Studio USA mobile.
Love it.
Yeah, which is going to be killer because everybody can, provided they get fired up and get in the headspace to at least try. Because that's the biggest thing for me is always getting somebody to just jump in the pool once.
Yep.
And then you realize, oh, it's not fatal. I survived and it's doable. Well, once you get over that, then the second time isn't as difficult. And I have clients now that, oh my God, the first couple of times we, ran it up the flagpole, it was, a couple of decent takes in between panic attacks. But now they would look back at that previous version of themselves and be like, what was I worried about?
Right.
And why didn't I start sooner? It's that whole thing about the plant a tree like
Absolutely.
100 years ago
Yes.
or today,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, you got today.
Yeah, do it now.
And so, what was your origin story of getting, were you just born like, hey, throw me in front of the camera?
Man, I think one of my biggest pet peeves is when people say something along the lines of like, "Oh, you're so good at speaking, you're just a natural. Like you're a natural. Like, oh, it's so cool. Like," and they imply that I just woke up on a Tuesday and was like great at talking or great at getting in front of the camera. And
You're
first
like,
off,
no,
I think I still have a long ways to go.
It was a Thursday.
Yeah, it was a Thursday. It totally was a Thursday. And what they don't see is all the reps and like
Yes.
the coaching that I've got and the time on task. And, as kids, we're willing to mess up at something in order to be great, right? We're willing to like mess up on the bike or we're willing to mess up on the skateboard, whatever it is. And then the more we become adults, the more we're like, ooh, I don't want to, like, it's like we think we've graduated from that like fall down, scuff your knee kind of phase. And you haven't. So you've either, you never graduate from that in life. You either just stop growing, right? Or you come to terms with like, I'm going to have to scrape my knees a couple times. And that's just part of the process. So somebody said the other day, they said, don't make it harder than it is. Meaning, like, how often do we get in our head and we make something way harder than, like, it's just going to be as hard as it is, right? Like, don't make it harder than it actually is. And it's like once you know you need to do something, just play that game in your head, whatever it is, and just 3, 2, 1, go, whatever it is. But you've got to get clear on what am I avoiding right now. What make a list. What are the 10 things you know you're avoiding right now, and then what's the plan to take action on one? And maybe you need accountability. Maybe you need a coach. Maybe you need a mentor. But like, stop waiting.
Right. And there is the Zen mind, beginner's mind, which is another. I'm just throwing books out there like, oh, I'm so well read.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too, for sure.
But the idea there, kids don't know better.
Right.
Kid wants to ride bike.
Right.
Okay, well, that's going to take some crashing and some, some freak outs and some panic. And then, but once they're riding the bike, they don't remember any of the freak outs and how patently useless that sort of thing is, because I don't know about you, but I've had a thing in there subconsciously, like a subroutine on the hard drive, where things aren't supposed to be easy. So you would make them harder than they are, because there's some sort of implied sense of, oh, extra points for suffering.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
oh, I've got the high score.
Yes.
Oh my God. Yeah, I got to this thing, but holy hell was it. Oh, there was a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah.
You know, and one of the things that I'd heard one point in time, and it was like, what a dumbass thing to say. And there was somebody just in a cavalier that somebody said, like, oh my God, you're like, you're good at whatever. And the person they were talking to was objectively good at like being on stage and doing the thing or whatever. And they was like, what was the, you know, and it was like, oh, it was hard till it was easy.
Yeah. Huh.
And I was like, wow, that's a nugget.
Yeah.
You know, put that in the fortune cookie thing.
Yes.
But I understood after all of the, you know, obstacle course of imposter syndrome and freakouts, and also associating my identity and by extension self-worth, whatever, with whatever it was that I was doing.
Interesting.
And I think that's it's a canyon for a lot of people to get over, where, especially if you're reasonably successful in fill in the blank. You know,
absolutely.
You're a banker, you're an insurance person, you're a doctor, a lawyer, whatever. Or in our case, in our orbit, you're a highly successful real estate agent.
Right.
Well, but what got you to be, you know, at the top of the charts in 2011 isn't going to do it today.
Yeah.
And again, goes back to the thing. There's somebody coming out of the oven fresh champion school right this very minute that is absolutely going to blow you away, and they won't have a tenth of the actual knowledge of what you have in business. They'll get it,
right?
But just by attrition, just by, you know, the reps in the field. Look at that. The Studio USA.
I love it. I love it.
Google gives us the screensaver of the Statue of Liberty.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, the gimmicks.
I love it.
So, like, how do you get folks over that initial fear?
You know, it's really interesting what you said just a couple of seconds ago. I think it's so much of coaching goes back to identity. And at the end of the day, right? If we get 30 layers deep, it's identity, right? If I see myself as someone who is not a morning person, that's never going to change, right? If I see myself as I'm not good on the phone, like if I truly have that belief and that's how I see myself, it's never going to change, right? So like when you see Bill, what we've got to change is, do you see yourself as someone who does it perfect? Or do you see yourself as someone who's proud of you for trying? I see myself as someone who's proud that I take effort, right? I see myself as someone, I'm proud that I am willing to do new things and fall down. Like, part of my identity is not doing it right all the time. Part of my identity is being willing and proud of myself for the act of attempting, right?
Yes.
So I think that's kind of what goes on. So am I proud of myself just for always having it perfect? Or am I going to be proud of myself for like continuing to learn, continuing to evolve, continuing to like just be willing to, I'm willing to fall down and get my teeth kicked in a little bit and go like, that was a terrible video. You know what I mean? I mean, just last week we put out a video that had no sound. You know what I mean? Like we're still messing it up.
Hey, we did it a minute ago.
I mean, did you see that I ordered cards today and everything was spelled correctly.
Yes.
Except my name.
Yes.
Which I've been writing for a while now.
I'm still waiting for the callback from Mr. Salins.
Yes, yeah.
Mr. Salins.
My best friend is like, you know that wouldn't happen if you let me proofread stuff, and I was like, I know. You know,
but I don't need a proofreader.
Thought I had that. You know, nope. Turns out I don't. So there we go. You spelled it right. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
I actually copied and pasted.
So I think it is like, what are the 2 or 3 things that, like, and I'm asking a lot of my clients this question right now. Like, what are you proud of being better at so far this year? What do you want to be proud of? Like, what's the skill or what's the thing you want to be better at, you know, at the end of this quarter or at the end of the next quarter? And just pick 1 or 2 of those things and like go. And then here's the key is like, then get specific about it, right? Because it's not just about effort, right? So it's like, I want to get better at, you know, somebody goes, I want to get better at my, you know, morning routine, whatever. It's like, okay, what are we going to do? Like, maybe I'll read a book. Maybe I'll watch a bunch of videos on YouTube. Like what are you going to actually do? Because I think there's a lot of times there's an intention and there's no clear like next step.
Yeah.
And it's just like this like random effort, work hard thing, which is total BS because nothing ever happens, right? It's like, well, I tried. It's like, but you didn't actually do anything. Like, trying is not like put a little effort behind it.
Well, and that's why, like I said, I love your little catchphrases and frameworks of like the intention and reflection.
Yes,
It's like, did it work?
Yes.
It's like, first off, kudos for doing the thing, whatever that was.
Absolutely.
Especially if you intended to do it.
Yeah.
And
Bonus points.
yeah, bonus points on the intention aspect. And then if you look back and go like, wow, that was awesome. I'm glad I did that.
Right.
Or that sucked. Course correct. Pivot.
Intention, massive action, and then intentional reflection
Yes.
is the key. And I'll tell you what, even when something goes bad, you know, I mean, you've heard me saying before, but my favorite questions are like, what went well? Like, what did I do good? What didn't I do good? Or like, that wasn't great. You know what I mean? Or I sucked at. And the third is like, right, what did I learn from this? And then what will I do different next time?
Yeah, what's the takeaway?
Exactly. Like, what's the takeaway? And then what specifically will I do different next time? And I'll tell you what, that helps my clients so much. I had a client last week that lost, you know, they had a deal that didn't work out. And it's like, hey, what would you have done different? You know, what did you do good? What did you not do good? What did you learn? And what will you do different next time? And by actually taking a second to write down the answer to those 4 questions, she was emotionally able to like be clear on what she was going to do different and emotionally be able to move on instead of kind of like, you know, getting in the feedback loop from hell, which is like, I just suck and I sucked and I was not good and I wasn't great. Like, now I'm just beat up, tired, and I need to change. Like, that's not cool.
Right. It's like I always call that you're doing donuts in the cul-de-sac.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just whip it.
It's like, oh no, where you want to be is like right around the corner, but you're in the cul-de-sac.
Yeah, you're like, I
donuts.
wore the tires off. It's like, yeah, but you didn't go anywhere. Like you went absolutely nowhere. I've had some days like that.
Oh,
yeah.
I still get them, and
But I still want a sticker, and it's like, there's no, you didn't go anywhere.
Well, and that comes one of the things I love about you, and even to the point of putting out like your mistakes on social media, which is not the norm, but is the self-awareness.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing of, oh, I'm good at X, but only because I went through the other letters of the alphabet.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course too, like how this Fired Up Friday started was you posting on the Facebook Live on the Thanksgiving night about the Goggins thing, you know, and it's like I hadn't thought about that in a while, but somebody asked me the other day, like, so like, how did you start the? It might have even been Austin, but I was telling him about the whole thing of the Fired Up Friday, and it was I just needed somebody that wouldn't freeze whenever we were live, and I'm thinking that, and then all of a sudden, and I had seen the fucking Goggins thing like 1,000 times on a bunch of different platforms, and then had no idea it was you, and then boom, you go live, and you know you're misty-eyed, and you're doing like this live confessional. I'm like, whoa, okay, that is not the normal feed content that I'm used to. And then whenever you connected those dots, I was like, holy shit. And that was the thing. And I messaged you like immediately. And then your next day, you're like, I'm in. And here we are. And I'm super excited for you to bring that vibe and that the cliche of like pouring into others. And it's like, we need to come up with a new phrase for that.
Yeah.
But that's what you do.
Well, and I think it's sharing. It's just sharing, like, hey, here's all the things we tried. Like, here's the best frameworks that work for me, and pick whichever ones work best for you.
Well, and that's the thing I love too about Ashley and Michelle, kind of doing the same thing, but from the female perspective. And the best thing about those two, as the yin and yang and their live kind of like Abbott and Costello thing, is Ashley is Michelle's perfect client, and yet the perfect foil where Ashley has that, you know, I always joke where it's like, hey, whose husband and wife and mother and family and homeschooled kid supports everything they do in their like wild ass business ventures? Oh, I'm the only one. Okay. Everybody else needs a coach, you know, that kind of a thing. Everybody else needs a framework, unless you have this ridiculous support system that just allows you to be that free spirit. And most people don't.
No.
Most people are treading water out there in that sort of deep blue ocean and don't know what to do next.
Yeah.
And then they know that they need to do something. And that's the other thing I love is like you give this clarity and sort of like a compass point or a North Star.
Yeah.
And that's huge. And now we're going to dial it into my world where everybody gets to do the content creation experimentation at Throttle Up.
Absolutely. And I think that's such a cool thing to work with you. One of the things that I did, Big John, who's one of my best friends and partners, in a bunch of things we do. And one of the things the best thing he did for me when I originally started vlogging was he was like, we're going to spend 3 days and just go practice. And it was like, hey, hold the camera like this. Don't say it that way. Try this instead of this. And like, that was so valuable. And like you and your work with your clients, you do a lot of the same stuff, which is like, you can try this out on your own, but if you want me to collapse the first year of your effort, like let's sit down with you for an hour, get in the field, like practice, get in the studio, whatever. And such a great way.
Yeah,
to do
I
that.
always have, like, when somebody's actually serious or whatever, I'll bring them in to the studio, and I said, just come in, we'll do some brainstorming and maybe like do a screen test or whatever. So that takes all the oxygen out of the anxiety and the fear that is produced. Like, oh man, because it's like everybody has their own inner monologue, pastor or Bob, if you will,
absolutely.
that is filling in the blanks.
Yes.
And I don't know about you, but my guy never does that in an optimistic, constructive way.
No.
And it's Darwinian and it's human nature to catastrophize.
Yeah.
Because that's what keeps you alive when there's saber-toothed tigers around. However, we haven't had those for a while. So the catastrophizing doesn't really help. Yeah. But it's still there.
It's still there. Figure out how to deal with it.
And dude, I'm fired up to throttle up, bro.
It's going to be awesome. Next week, we're fired up. We're throttled up. We're going to bring fired up to throttled up.
Yes.
And we'll be there.
All right.
It'll be great.
And I guess that's it for this week.
That's it. Let's go get it. Take action.
There you go. And we are